I'm Ella Mitchell, and our family seemed perfect on paper. Mom worked at the tax service, wearing her position like a badge of honor. She'd come home each evening, briefcase stuffed with papers, talking about promotions and pension plans. Dad worked at the city administration, but his heart wasn't in it. I'd catch him sketching business plans on napkins during dinner. "Think about it, Sarah," he'd say, eyes bright with excitement. "A whole chain of specialty stores. We could stop it, James," Mom would cut him off sharply. "We have stable jobs, good benefits. Why can't you be satisfied with that?" I didn't understand their arguments then. To me, Dad's dreams sounded like fairy tales, full of possibility and adventure. But Mom would always shake her head, her lips pressed into a thin line. Then came that night. I was playing with my dolls when Mom's scream echoed through our house. "What do you mean you took out a loan?" Her voice was shrill, terrifying. "How much, Sarah? Please." "I've done all the research. Are you insane? Do you want us to end up on the street?" I crept to my bedroom door, peering through the crack. Mom was pacing, her face red with anger. "I won't let you drag me down with you, James. I won't." The next morning, Dad was gone. Mom told me he'd moved to another city to start his business. I didn't understand why he hadn't said goodbye. Weeks turned into months. Dad's business succeeded. I knew because Mom would stare at the alimony checks with a mixture of anger and disgust. But he never came back, never called, never tried to be part of my life. Mom threw herself into her work even more after that. She hired Elena, my nanny, who became my primary caregiver while Mom spent longer and longer hours at the office. "Your mother's working hard for you," Elena would say when I asked why Mom was never home. But I knew the truth. Mom was hiding from the living reminder of Dad's success, me. She'd rather bury herself in spreadsheets and tax forms than face the daughter of the man who proved her wrong. Some nights, I'd hear her on the phone with her friends. He actually made it work. Can you believe it? But at what cost? He abandoned his own daughter. But Dad hadn't just abandoned me. Mom had pushed him away, choosing the security of her job over the uncertainty of his dreams. And now I was paying the price for their choices, caught in the middle of their broken marriage, watching my mother retreat further into her work, while my father built his empire in another city. My grandmother, Marion, was like a burst of color in our grayscale life. She didn't visit often, but when she did, our house came alive with her energy and warmth, though these visits usually ended in heated arguments with Mom. "Sarah, look what you've done," Grandma would say, gesturing around our empty-feeling house. "James is thriving in his business, and you've torn this family apart for what? Your pride?" "Don't you dare lecture me about my choices, Mom," Mom would snap back, her voice sharp as broken glass. Stay out of my life and my decisions. I'd hide in my room during these fights, but I could still hear every word. Sometimes, Grandma would come up afterward, her eyes sad but her smile warm. When I turned 7, Grandma started paying for me to attend Riverside Academy, a private school she said would give me better opportunities. Mom didn't object. I think she was just glad to have me out of the house for longer hours as I grew older. I began to understand why Mom kept me at arm's length. Every time I got excited about a school project or showed initiative in something, I'd catch her watching me with this cold, distant look. I reminded her too much of Dad, the man who'd proved her wrong, who'd succeeded despite her predictions of failure. Mom provided for me materially. I always had clean clothes, good food, and a roof over my head, but there were never any hugs. No kisses goodnight, no I love you, S. She spent her free time with friends from work, going on weekend trips and vacations without me. I stayed with Elena, my nanny, or occasionally with Grandma. I thought this was normal. I thought all mothers maintained this professional distance from their children until the day I went to my friend Katie's birthday party. The party was in full swing when Katie knocked over her juice. Instead of anger, her mother rushed over with a warm laugh. "Oh, sweetie, are you okay?" She hugged Katie close, kissing her forehead, helping her clean up while they giggled together. I stood frozen, watching the display of casual affection like an anthropologist observing a newly discovered tribe. Katie's mom hugged her just because. She kissed her cheek for no reason. She said I love you without any special occasion prompting it. That night, I lay in bed, imagining what it would be like to have a mom who hugged me, who kissed me goodnight, who wanted to spend time with me. I was hopeful when Mom started dating Robert. He'd come over for dinner, always bringing me small gifts, candy or little toys. He seemed genuinely interested in my school stories, asking questions and laughing at my jokes. When Mom announced they were getting married, I dared to dream that finally I might get the family I'd seen at Katie's house. But nothing changed. Mom remained distant with me even after the wedding. Then came the announcement of her pregnancy. "You're going to have a little sister," Robert told me, grinning widely. "Isn't that exciting?" I was 8 when Sophie was born. From the very first day, I watched in stunned silence as Mom transformed, but only for my sister. She'd coo at Sophie, shower her with kisses, hold her close just because she could. All the things I'd been starving for my entire life, Sophie received in abundance. "Look at her tiny fingers," Mom would whisper, nuzzling Sophie's neck. "Aren't they perfect?" I'd stand in the doorway of the nursery, watching Mom rock Sophie to sleep, singing lullabies I'd never heard. Sometimes the pain in my chest was so sharp I couldn't breathe. Why could she love Sophie but not me? Was it because Sophie wasn't Dad's daughter, because she didn't remind Mom of her mistake? The final blow came when Mom quit her job to stay home with Sophie. The same woman who'd barely spared me an hour of her time was now dedicating her entire day to my half-sister. But even with all the time she found at home, she still had none to spare for me. "Ella, your grandmother's coming to pick you up," she'd say, not even looking up from Sophie. "I need to focus on the baby." I spent more and more time at Grandma's house. Sometimes I'd cry into my pillow there, wondering what was wrong with me, why I wasn't lovable enough. "Why doesn't Mom love me like she loves Sophie?" I finally asked Grandma one day. Grandma pulled me close, her voice thick with emotion. "Oh, sweetheart, sometimes adults carry wounds that have nothing to do with the people they hurt. Your mother's pain is about your father. She's taking it out on you, and it's not fair." The years that followed Sophie's birth were like living in a minefield. I never knew when the next explosion would come. By the time Sophie was old enough to understand the family dynamics, she'd learned to use them to her advantage with frightening precision. I was 14 when the incidents started becoming more frequent. One morning, I found my science project torn apart on my desk, but just as I wanted to scold that little rascal, she had already disappeared from the room. "Mom!" Sophie came running downstairs, tears streaming down her face. "Ella destroyed my new dollhouse because she was jealous that Daddy bought it for me." "That's not true. I was studying all evening." "Sophie, tell the truth." Mom's face hardened as she looked at me. "Why do you always blame your sister? Go to your room. You're grounded for 2 weeks. This became our routine." Sophie would break something, hide Mom's jewelry in my backpack, or plant Robert's missing money in my room. Each time, I'd try to defend myself, but my words fell on deaf ears. "I saw her take your bracelet, Mom," Sophie would say, her voice dripping with fake concern. "I didn't want to tell, but she's been stealing things." Robert would look at me with disgust. I knew we couldn't trust her. Like father, like daughter, both of them dishonest to the core. At first, I fought back. I'd cry, scream, beg them to believe me. But gradually, I learned that defending myself only made things worse. Sophie reveled in my punishments, watching with a small smirk as I was sent to my room, grounded or had my allowance taken away. One night, I heard Mom and Robert talking in their bedroom. I'd stopped to pick up some laundry in the hallway when their voices drifted through the door. "Why don't we just send her to live with your mother?" Robert was saying. "She's nothing but trouble." "Are you kidding?" Mom scoffed. "James sends $33,000 in alimony every month. That's why I can afford to stay home with Sophie. Once Ella turns 18, that money stops. We need to keep her here until then." The laundry basket slipped from my hands, clothes scattering across the floor. That's when everything clicked into place. I wasn't a daughter to her, I was a meal ticket. The only reason she kept me around was my father's money. That night I lay in bed and made a plan. I would focus on my studies, get into a good college, and escape this house forever. I started staying late at the library, taking extra classes, anything to minimize my time at home. "Look at her, acting so superior with her studying," Sophie would taunt. "You think you're better than us." But I didn't care anymore. Each insult, each false accusation, each punishment, they were just counting down the days until my freedom. I started keeping a calendar, marking off days until graduation like a prisoner marking time until release. When Sophie stole Mom's expensive perfume and planted the empty bottle in my room, I accepted the punishment silently. When she took money from Robert's wallet and stuffed it in my coat pocket, I didn't even try to defend myself. Their words couldn't hurt me anymore. I was already gone in my mind, counting down the days until I could make it real. It was a Tuesday in late March during my senior year when everything finally came crashing down. The moment I opened our front door, the acrid smell of smoke hit my nostrils. My heart stopped. Living in this house had taught me that disaster could strike at any moment. Following the smell, I rushed down to the basement. The scene that greeted me made my blood run cold. Sophie was crouched in the corner, surrounded by burning newspapers and cardboard boxes. She had created a small bonfire, and the flames were already licking dangerously close to the wooden storage shelves. "Sophie, are you insane?" I screamed, lunging forward. "You'll burn the house down." Without thinking, I grabbed her shoulders and yanked her away from the fire. It all happened so fast. She lost her balance, stumbled backward, and threw out her arm to break her fall. The sickening crack that followed will haunt me forever. "Aha!" Sophie's scream pierced the air as she clutched her arm. "You hurt me! You did it on purpose!" My hands shaking, I pulled out my phone and called Mom while simultaneously trying to stamp out the remaining flames. "Mom, there's been an accident. Sophie's hurt. Please come home now." Everything after that happened in a blur. Mom burst through the door, took one look at Sophie cradling her arm, and rushed her to the hospital without even glancing at me. I sat on the stairs, my clothes still smelling of smoke, waiting for the axe to fall. When they returned hours later, Sophie's arm was in a cast, and Mom's face was set in stone. Without saying a word, she walked straight to my room and started pulling out my clothes, throwing them into garbage bags. "Mom, please, let me explain," I begged. Sophie was playing with fire in the basement. I was trying to save her. "I can show you the—" She told me everything. Mom cut me off, her voice trembling with rage. "How you pushed her down the stairs because you were jealous of her new school bag. How you've been threatening her for weeks." "What? That's insane. There was a fire." Sophie stood in the doorway, tears streaming down her face. "Stop lying. You hurt me on purpose. You've always hated me." "Get out," Mom said, dragging the bags toward the front door. "Get out of my house before I call the police and have you arrested for assault. Who do you think they'll believe?" I felt the blood drain from my face. She was right. With my record of past incidents all carefully orchestrated by Sophie, who would believe me? "I need money too," I said. Mom laughed angrily. "Money? Your father's alimony will be paying for Sophie's medical bills. And don't even think about running to him with some made-up story. One word from you, and I'll file a police report about this assault. How would that look on your college applications?" The threat hung in the air like poison. With trembling hands, I grabbed my coat and one of the garbage bags containing my belongings. The rest of my things lay scattered across our front lawn like debris after a storm. I made my way to Grandma's house in a daze, dragging the bag behind me. When she opened the door, one look at my face told her everything she needed to know. The next few months passed in a blur of studying and college applications. When graduation day arrived, I sat among my classmates, scanning the crowd. Despite everything, a small part of me hoped to see Mom's face in the audience. But only Grandma was there, beaming with pride as I received my diploma with honors. Thanks to my grades and determination, I earned a full scholarship to State University's business school. Those 4 years were a breath of fresh air. No walking on eggshells, no false accusations, just the freedom to be myself and excel. After graduating with a degree in business management, I landed a job at a marketing firm. 8 years flew by, each one taking me further from the trauma of my childhood home. I had my own apartment, a successful career, and, most importantly, peace. My only family connection was Grandma, who remained my rock through everything. Then I met David. He quite literally ran into me at a coffee shop, spilling his latte all over both of us. Instead of getting angry, we couldn't stop laughing about it. "Let me buy you a replacement coffee," he said, "and maybe a new blouse." One coffee led to dinner led to more dates, and within 6 months we were planning a wedding. It was a small ceremony, just us, a judge, and Grandma, who cried happy tears throughout. "You deserve this happiness, sweetheart," she whispered during our mother-daughter dance, which she had insisted on doing. David owned a chain of successful fast food restaurants across the city. One evening over dinner, he mentioned having trouble with his supply chain management. "You're great at analysis," he said. "Would you consider coming to work with me? I could use someone I trust to oversee our purchasing." I jumped at the chance. Finally, all my business training could be put to good use in a family business. A healthy one, built on trust and mutual respect. Within months of diving into the paperwork, patterns started emerging. Several suppliers were consistently overcharging while delivering subpar products. But one vendor, Fresh Fields Produce, was particularly egregious. "David, look at these numbers," I said one evening, spreading reports across our dining table. "Fresh Fields has been charging us 40% above market rate for produce that's barely making grade. And look at these delivery records. They're consistently late, affecting our inventory management." David studied the reports carefully. "This is excellent work, honey. No wonder our profit margins have been tight. I'm terminating their contract immediately. I've already researched some alternatives. I said, pulling out more documents. These 3 companies have better prices and quality ratings. As I watched David make calls to begin the process of changing suppliers, I felt a surge of pride. This was what a real partnership looked like, working together, trusting each other, building something meaningful. My phone buzzed with an unknown number while I was reviewing supplier contracts. Something made me hesitate before answering. "Hello, Ella. It's Sophie." My hand tightened around the phone. 10 years of silence, and now this. "What do you want?" I kept my voice neutral, professional. "Can't sisters catch up? Let's meet for coffee. We have so much to talk about." No, the word came out sharp and final. "Say what you need to say." There was a pause, then Sophie's voice changed, dropping its fake sweetness. "Fine. Your husband is about to make a huge mistake. Fresh Fields Produce?" "That's my fiancé's company." The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. "Marcus and I are getting married in 3 months," Sophie continued. "We've been planning this amazing wedding. Cathedral venue, designer dress, 5-star catering, but we need the income from your husband's restaurant chain to pay for it." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Are you telling me you've been deliberately overcharging our restaurants to fund your wedding?" "Don't act so self-righteous," Sophie sneered. Marcus just adjusted the prices a little. "We need this, Ella. You have to convince David to keep our contract." "Adjusted the prices?" I felt my voice rising. "You're charging 40% above market rate for substandard produce. Some of it is nearly expired when it arrives. You're scamming us. It's called business, sis. Besides, you owe me after everything you did." "Everything I did?" I cut her off. "You mean like when you lit a fire in the basement and then got me thrown out of my home? Were all those years you planted stolen items in my room just business?" "Talk to David," Sophie demanded. "Tell him to keep our contract. Or what, you'll lie about me again?" "I'm not that scared little girl anymore, Sophie. I won't help you defraud my husband's business to fund your dream wedding. Find another way to pay for your cathedral. You'll regret this," she spat and hung up. 20 minutes later, my phone rang again. "Mom, how dare you?" She started without preamble. "After everything this family has done for you." I actually laughed. "Family? What family? The one that framed me for theft? The one that threw me out on the street with garbage bags of clothes? You ungrateful little. Your sister is finally happy, finally getting married, and you're trying to ruin it. Where's your loyalty?" "Loyalty?" My voice was steady now. "Let's talk about loyalty, Mom. Where was your loyalty when I needed a mother? When Sophie was framing me for theft? When I was sleeping on Grandma's couch because you chose to believe another of Sophie's lies? You broke her arm," Mom shouted. "I saved her life. She was playing with fire in the basement, or did you forget that convenient detail? But you never wanted the truth, did you? You just wanted excuses to hate me because I reminded you of Dad. Don't you dare— No, you don't dare," I cut her off. "You don't get to demand anything from me. The only family I have is Grandma, who actually loves me. Sophie and her fiancé can find honest ways to pay for their wedding. I won't help them steal from my husband's business." With that, I hung up. That evening, I sat with David in our living room, my hands wrapped around a cup of tea that had long gone cold. I told him everything. About Sophie, her fiancé Marcus, their scheme to fund their lavish wedding through overcharging our restaurants. David listened quietly, his face growing darker with each detail. When I finished, he reached over and took my hands in his. "Honey, I'm not just canceling their contract now. I'm making sure every restaurant owner in this city knows exactly what kind of business Fresh Fields Produce runs." "Are you sure?" I asked. "They'll probably try to cause trouble." "Let them try," David said firmly. "What they're doing isn't just unethical, it's fraud. And I protect what's mine, both my business and my wife." Over the next week, David shared the documentation I'd gathered with other restaurant owners in his network. The response was immediate and overwhelming. One by one, restaurants began canceling their contracts with Fresh Fields Produce. Marcus's reputation in the industry was destroyed. Then came another call from Mom. "You've gone too far," she hissed. "You're destroying your sister's future out of spite." "No, Mom, their own dishonesty did that." "Well, let's see how you like being cut off completely," she threatened. "I'm talking to your grandmother tonight. You won't see a penny of inheritance after what you've done." I actually smiled. "Go ahead. Call Grandma." "I already told her everything last week." There was a pause on the other end. "That's right," I continued. "I told her about Sophie's fiancé's scam, about their attempted blackmail, about your threats. And you know what? She's already updated her will. I'm her sole heir. Not that I care about the money. Unlike some people, I can build my own future without scamming others." Mom's response was a string of curses before she hung up. Weeks passed. Through the grapevine, I heard that Sophie's dream wedding had been cancelled. No cathedral, no designer dress, no five-star catering. She and Marcus had a quick ceremony at City Hall instead. Apparently, she blamed me for ruining her special day and destroying her fiancé's business. But I felt nothing but peace. For the first time in my life, I'd stood my ground against their manipulation and won. Their threats had no power over me anymore. Last week, Grandma came over for dinner. As we sat in our garden, watching the sunset, she squeezed my hand. "You know, Ella," she said, "sometimes the family you're born into isn't the family you're meant to have. You built something beautiful here, a loving marriage, an honest business, a life of integrity. I'm so proud of you." I looked around at my home, my life, everything I'd built despite, or maybe because of, all the challenges they'd thrown at me. Sophie and Mom might blame me for their failures, but I know the truth. Their downfall came from their own choices, their own dishonesty, their own cruelty. As for me, I finally have what I always wanted, a real family built on love, trust, and truth, and nothing they can do will ever take that away from me.